we saw the market go up to 5929 in trade today, had a very positive day. There's very thin volumes around, so there doesn't seem to be a lot of movement. And what you'll see is when there is movement in some of the bigger companies, it does have a much more marked effect. So that's what's happening definitely with the FTSE. Oil prices, they actually reached another record high, above $74. We've actually seen in London Brent at 74.90, New York light sweet at 74.22. They keep pushing ahead. What you see there is some people speculating with the trouble in the Middle East. It means that there could be a crush on supply. If that happens, of course, demand is still going to be there, so you push the prices up. Also, because that's being pushed up, of course, energy prices to the consumer, to us at home, goes up. Centrica saying up 12% for gas customers.
That's on top of 22%, what, 4 months ago? That's
right, yeah. It's actually their 11th, well, it's the 11th rise by a major supplier and the 3rd rise in 12 months by Centrica, by British Gas themselves. So it doesn't look as though it's going to be very good news. It also means that we need to keep a very close eye on what happens with inflation, because if our prices go up, the energy prices go up, we're spending more on those bills, it pushes inflation up a little bit higher. It may mean we won't see an interest rate rise, so that might be good news for people in the housing market, but certainly not good news for savers. Very interesting time at the moment. Well, Centrica says that it has been working very hard to keep customers' bills as low as possible.
Key delivery there is about reducing our costs, and what we have been able to do last year is reduce our cost base by 130 million. We've committed to reduce it in 2007 by 200 million, so we are making great strides to reduce our cost. And of course what we have been doing by delaying our price increases is supporting our customers, which is why we made 3 million in the first half, and that's on top of a loss of 75 million in the second half of last year.
Well, Centrica wasn't the only energy firm with results out today. The oil giant Royal Dutch Shell reported a 36% jump in profits on the back of soaring world crude prices. The hefty rise amounts to earnings just over £1.5 million an hour. But Shell says its profits had been hit by unrest in Nigeria, where militants had been targeting oil installations, and Shell say they are continuing to deal with the aftermath of last year's hurricane season. Analysts say the company is continuing to invest in its future.
I think it's a growing movement amongst the integrateds now. Both BP and Shell are starting to invest in things such as solar, wind, alternative energy. It is something that's now becoming topical, and with the price of oil at these levels, it's becoming something that will start to generate decent returns for the companies.
And BT sales are up 3% to £4.86 billion. The company is counting on new services like broadband and internet access to counteract falling fixed-line revenues. Despite the ever-growing number of rivals in the market, BT CEO Ben Verwaayen says the company isn't worried about the competition.
We are for value for money, so we are going for the whole package. So what you can do with it, how to make it relevant, how to really enjoy all the capabilities. And then this stuff is really important. You can go for cheaper, you can go for better. You can go for total commitment to price, as some do. We go for total commitment for our customers. But the good thing is there are now 200 suppliers. There is choice. And our market share stayed the same, and we're doing fine.
Well, he's doing fine. That's the business news. We'll be back in an hour. Thanks, Peter.
Julia, thank you very much.
It's a very busy day here, I tell you. Behind me you can see lots of the delegates all listening in to a little bit of a chat about innovation. If you come around just slightly, you can see the panel at the moment discussing the innovation for the UK, what the future holds, research and development, all of the key issues that Gordon Brown, the Chancellor, spoke about this morning when he delivered his keynote speech to the conference. Now, one of the speakers who's just literally come off the podium to speak to us now is JP Garnier. He's the CEO of GlaxoSmithKline. Thank you very much for taking time out of a very busy day to talk to us. You were talking very much about innovation. This is something that we've been hearing again and again and again. It's going to push us forward in the economy. Is it something that the government's helping businesses with enough, do you think?
Well, I think they're off to a very good start, and I think the government totally understands that UK-based businesses are not going to win the war by being low-cost producers. When we have to compete with Chinese and Indian companies, they have a competitive advantage on us. So we need to compensate for that, but we can out-innovate them and therefore continue to be successful that way. So the government is very implicated. They have tried to provide a very good infrastructure, scientifically, technically, they have. They have tried to make access to capital easier for the young entrepreneurs. I wish they could also make more publicity to the best and the brightest in this country to join the ranks of entrepreneurship, to join the ranks of looking for innovation. We need to work together, business and the government, to appeal to the young generation. This is a tremendous career to be able to start a company, to discover some new process or new product, and that's what's going to really pull the UK economy ahead of the rest of the world.
Now, as GlaxoSmithKline, you were mentioning when you were on the stage that you're totally dependent on innovation and you have a race to constantly renew your product line. How much of a battle is that for you, and how much do you spend on pushing things forward?
Well, it is the only battle because, as you put it, if we do not find new products, we disappear. We can't build on the past as if we were a car manufacturer or record manufacturer. You can still sell records of Frank Sinatra those days. We don't have a Frank Sinatra because our products go into the public domain and they get pirated and genericized and they're gone. So we need to come up with new products all the time, and that's why we spend in excess of £2.5 billion in research alone. We are one of the biggest contributors to R&D in the UK because we need it to find the new products.
JP Garnier, thank you very much indeed. As I mentioned, it is a very busy day here. The conference continues. We will be here for the rest of the afternoon, as will the delegates. We will be back in an hour.
But let's find out a bit more about that multi-billion-pound bailout to stop the debt crisis in Greece, swamping other European countries with big overdrafts. That's nations like Spain and Portugal. Julia Caesar is here with us today. And this deal, first of all, what's in it?
It's a massive package, £650 billion in total, around about that amount of money. And it's made up of a variety of loans and hard cash. Let's just take a look at exactly how it's made up. £380 billion worth of this comes from the Eurozone countries. Now, this is loan guarantees.
And these are the countries that use the euro, yes?
Exactly. So these are the 16 Eurozone countries. And, of course, the stronger ones are having to give money to look after the weaker ones. £52 billion comes from the European Commission. Now, that is being made available immediately. So any country that needs a quick bailout, that's where they need to get that from. And £217 billion from the International Monetary Fund. The UK has an exposure of around £8 billion, and that's a loan guarantee which they have said will be put in place as well.
I was going to ask you about that because I've seen some stuff in the papers today that the UK could be into maybe 11, 12, maybe even more than that, depending on how things goes out. It might strike some of our viewers as a bit odd that we're not part of the zone that uses the euro. Quite intentionally, we've kept out of it. And yet here we are having to stump up the cash because they're having problems.
Absolutely, but we do an awful lot of business in Europe. And Alistair Darling, the Chancellor, came out saying, well, even though we don't actually support the total bailout, we are part of Europe. That's what he said. And the total exposure for the UK is around 15 billion. Now, that's made up of the 8 billion, which was pledged in a loan guarantee today, and a previous loan guarantee, which was pledged at 7 billion. So that's the total UK exposure, if you like, and it is a loan guarantee. So if those debts are not defaulted on, then that won't come into play.
OK, so we're only in for money if there is a default, if the other nations can't pay.
Absolutely, and you only have to look at what happened in Greece and you see exactly how a country can go into a complete meltdown. It was on the brink of bankruptcy, it needed money, and that was where everything started. Many people said that perhaps if the Eurozone had acted quicker, we wouldn't have been in the situation we are in now. However, there are still some weaker countries that are on the brink of bankruptcy in a similar way. And so, of course, this bailout package is being said it's a resolution, but it's not necessarily the solution to the problem in the long term.
So this just buys us a bit of time. We could be sat here in a year's time. Well, we won't be. But on some other programme, they could be sat in a year's time talking about exactly this issue again.
Exactly. They're saying that this package is enough to sustain a year. And really what will happen then is if these weaker countries haven't done something to change the situation, then it could be an issue again in a year's time.
OK, Julia, thank you very much. Julia Caesar there.